All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our weekly town hall for Therap's EVV solution for Kentucky providers. I should say welcome back. I know we took a week off last week. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and a little break. And we appreciate you coming back with us this week as we enter the home stretch for the Therap EVV project for our home health services here in the state of Kentucky. We're getting ready to enter December, which means we're getting very close to the finish line in terms of getting the entire EVV project up and running in the state. I know many of you guys have gone through the majority of the onboarding process. Others of you, I know we're working through the different calls with our support team. So again, we appreciate your participation and diligence in getting through the steps to get that done. And again, appreciate you guys taking a little time with us this afternoon for our weekly updates and additional information about the onboarding process and the EVV project at large. As always, a little bit of housekeeping before we formally get started. If you are here, you figured out the webinar connection, but in the event that you lose service or what have you and need to call in, we do have a dial-in number with meeting ID that you should see on your screen. You can certainly use that to dial into the audio should you need to. We also encourage you to utilize the chat information in there in case you need to troubleshoot if you're not hearing things properly or whatever the case may be. We've got a team of folks keeping an eye on that chat box and on our Q&A and stuff that will be happy to help you out if you're having any issues getting the information coming through. And the big piece here, as I briefly mentioned a moment ago, is we want to remind everyone that we do have the option for asking questions. A big part of what we're trying to do here is obviously us sharing information, but perhaps even bigger part is us making sure that we are answering the questions that you all have about the EVV onboarding process and everything associated with it. So we definitely encourage you guys to utilize the Q&A option within your Zoom panel. It looks like the picture you see on your screen there, so you can click on that, enter a question, and we will do our dead level best to get through and answer all of the questions that we can. If there are some that we do not get to, we will certainly compile those questions and type in the answers and share that information both in a future town hall. We try to go back and address questions from the previous town hall each week when we get on here. We also are compiling the answers for these and sharing them out through our EVV support page as well. So a couple of different ways for you guys to get that information. But again, we very much encourage you to utilize the Q&A forum for any questions that you have. With all that said, let's formally get started with some introductions. Again, my name is Jason Laws. Hopefully you guys all know me by now. I'm Therap's Director of Quality and Data Initiatives, and more importantly, for our purposes today, I am one of our leads on the EVV project here in Kentucky. So again, good to be with you all. I am joined on the call by several folks from Therap, but of particular note, I want to introduce you to Shawnette Lancaster, whose picture just popped up on your screen. Shawnette is going to basically be kind of the main event of our session this afternoon. After some quick introductions and some of the basic updates that we do, Shawnette's going to be taking us through a tour of the Therap aggregator. Whether you are utilizing Therap's EVV platform or a third-party vendor for sending information to our aggregator, ultimately your data is going to end up in our aggregator. And Shawnette is going to show you what that looks like and help you basically learn how to see the visits that you're collecting in your EVV platform, get over there, how to navigate through that, and see some reporting options that are in there. So we appreciate that. We're also joined by Nick Anderson. Nick's going to kind of be there to support Shawnette as well as needed with any additional information as we go through the demonstration. So we greatly appreciate those guys joining us. And as I mentioned, we've got several other folks from Therap kind of on the line listening in that are going to assist us with additional information, answering questions as needed and all that. So please do not be bashful in asking any questions that you have. So as I mentioned, our agenda for today, I'm going to do my typical spiel that many of you have heard many times, just some quick updates on the project and the timelines that we're looking at and a review of our onboarding process. But then the bulk of our time will be spent with Shawnette providing us a demonstration of information around the Therap aggregator. We've also got a little video in here about the aggregator and kind of the concept of what it is that I think will be helpful for those of you that may not be as familiar in terms of how an aggregator actually works. I think it'll provide you good context for the information to come from Shawnette. Once we do that, as always, we will close with a review of the frequently asked questions. As I said earlier, we'll try to address those that are coming in through the Q&A on the Zoom. We also have some answers to some questions that were asked during our last session that we'll share that information with you as well. So that's our plan for today. So to get us started, again, kind of a quick overview and description of the project. As everyone here knows, we at Therap are the selected vendor for EVV for home health and personal care services in the state of Kentucky. And for our purposes today, we are focusing and continuing to focus throughout the fall towards our go live date of 12/28 on home health. On top of Therap's EVV platform, part of the state contract also includes for you guys the utilization of the Therap EVV aggregator, which is where the bulk of the discussion is going to be today. Again, whether you're using third-party vendors or the Therap EVV platform, your data is going to come through to the aggregator. And we're excited to share with you more information about that. Again, with a go live date of 12/28/2023. As I said, we are very much near the end of our timeline. We've gone through a lot of steps in terms of our preparations. We've had several town halls throughout the fall, and you guys have been going through your onboarding processes with all of our Therap specialists. And we can kind of, as I said, see the finish line now. We're almost into December, where we're going to be doing our final setup and testing and training in preparation so that you guys are ready to go about a month from now with collection of EVV. So in terms of our onboarding processes and expectations, as hopefully everyone knows by now, you really do have two options. You can either utilize Therap as your EVV platform, as the state system, as part of the state contract. This is made available to you at no cost so that you can utilize EVV to capture that visit data on the front end. As part of that, you are also provided the option of utilizing Therap's billing platform as well to take that data that you're collecting through the EVV platform and pull it through Therap's billing system, where it will generate units and you can then submit that to your various payors, be it your MMIS as well as your MCOs as necessary. As many of you guys may have joined us a couple of weeks back with our billing specialist, Kelly Galloway, did an overview of what that billing process looks like. We do have a recording of that town hall available on our site. I'll show you where that is in just a few minutes. So if you missed that one and want to get that overview, we can link you up with that video so that you can see it, and also provide you with some additional resources if that's something that you're looking to do. The other option is the use of the ability to utilize a third-party vendor or a third-party system for the collection of EVV data. If any of you guys already have an EHR with an EVV system available, or have an EVV system that you would prefer to use, certainly you are welcome to do so, with the caveat that that EVV system must meet the certification process that we take you through so that it can share data with the EVV aggregator that we're going to talk about today, so that that information can be used to validate claims. Again, on the third party side, we do have an onboarding process for you guys as well. It looks a little bit different from the EVV platform. Essentially, it's you working with our technical leads to get set up with the aggregator and making sure that you can share the proper information across with the aggregator. And again, I know the overwhelming majority of you who are looking to do that have kind of gone through that process and are kind of in midstream in terms of finishing that up. In terms of the different types of activities, again, I think all of you have, by this point, have participated in some combination of the various buckets that we have on the screen. Obviously, these town halls are designed for universal sharing of information and resources and updates. And so we have been doing these on a weekly basis, and we'll continue to do so. The onboarding calls are a little more intimate. They are the one-on-one calls with our Therap specialists, where we take you through the setup of the accounts and provide instruction on how to utilize all of the components of the Therap EVV platform. And then similarly, we do provide a bunch of additional training resources, including recorded webinars and other types of asynchronous resources and tutorials and user guides and all of that stuff. We try to provide you with all of the help materials in a lot of different formats. Folks learn in different ways. So we've got a lot of different options for how we can provide that data and information to you. And I know our support team has been sharing a lot of that out, but certainly we encourage you, if you have questions, to follow up with us, and we're happy to provide additional training resources. So again, the onboarding process, we'll skip through this quickly because I think everybody here has probably done this already, but I know we initiated this. It's been now a little over a couple of months ago where we initiated the onboarding process by having you guys identify whether you wanted to use Theraps EVV or a third-party vendor system, and based on your responses there, we've initiated that process to get you to submit some basic information to us, which we have used to get things moving, whether it be towards the onboarding of the EVV platform or the linking of your third-party vendor. If, for God willing, there's not too many of you out there who fit in this category, but in the event that there are some who as yet have not gotten this information submitted to us, have not initiated this. I don't believe there are any of you guys out there anymore, but there may be one or two for whom either we've reached out and for whatever reason we've not gotten a response. We do ask that as soon as possible you reach out to us at one or both of the email addresses that you see on your screen at kysupport@therapservices.net. That's an alias that goes to our Kentucky Theraps support team that we will reach out to you immediately to get this process going. We can also ask that you submit your information to the Medicaid public comment email alias through ky.gov that you see here. And if you do submit information to either of these aliases, we do request that you not only provide your name, but please also provide your contact information, the name of your organization, and your particular provider number. Having all of that information is going to make the process that much easier on our end to be able to follow up with you and get you the information that you need to get things going forward. Once we have that information, again, we'll go through this onboarding process that the overwhelming majority of you guys have already been through, where we go through a series of calls with our specialists to get your account set up in terms of the basic administrator logins and setup, setting up your sites and services and programs within the platform so that you're prepared to collect EVV data. Obviously, we're going to be if you're choosing to use Theraps EVV platform, you're going to be entering in the individuals for whom you provide services. You'll be entering in your users, which are going to be your staff, the folks that are providing services. We're going to walk you through the process of getting all of that information into the system. And as it pertains specifically to your users, setting up folks with the appropriate privileging, the appropriate roles so that they can log in and do what they need to do in support of the individuals that you serve. We will then transition over to calls more focused on overall configuration of your account for EVV data collection. So that's going to be more along the lines of making sure the proper services are in there in your service directory, getting the authorizations for all of your individuals set up, creating schedules as needed, and showing folks how to check in and check out, and doing all of the things that are particular to EVV. And then last but not least, for those of you that are interested, and I know several of you have already done this or indicated your interest in doing this, if you are interested in doing direct billing and claiming through the Theraps platform, we also have an optional option that you guys can take advantage of, whereby we will go in with you and show you how to set up the full billing platform within Theraps with our billing specialist, Kelly. And she'll kind of help you take that next step beyond just EVV setup, but then how do I turn that EVV data into billing data that can be submitted to MMIS or your MCOs. For the third party folks, you guys have already gone through all of these, I believe, with maybe one or two exceptions. We've gotten in all of the agreements that are required in order to do the onboarding of your third-party vendor. So I know you guys are in communication with us now and our technical leads to go through the aggregator API specs, getting you guys the testing access and credentials, and we'll be providing that ongoing support to you to get through that testing process and get you certified. Obviously, if you are somewhere in this process and are not sure what to do next, please, again, feel free to reach out to us and we'll make sure you have the information that you need to get everything in place so that you're ready to start sending that data over prior to the go live date at the end of December. With all of that said, what we want to do now, as I said, is kind of transition over to kind of the main focus of what today's town hall is going to talk about, and that is a discussion of the Therap aggregator. Again, whether or not you are utilizing or plan to utilize Therap's EVV platform or a third-party vendor, both of those options from both of those options, you're going to be collecting EVV data that is then going to get sent over to a separate application, which is the Therap aggregator. This is a repository for information that will then ultimately be used to validate or deny claims from on the MMIS or MCO side. So for today's purposes, we want to give you guys kind of a tour of that, kind of how you're able to access it and what it looks like on the inside. But before we do that, I want to start us off with a quick video. For those of you that may not be as familiar with aggregators, this will give you kind of a quick overview as to what they are and how they work, and then we'll get on with our presentation.
With the implementation of the 21st Century Cures Act, aggregators now play a key role in EVV and billing processes. The job of an aggregator is to standardize EVV data from different provider software systems, and in doing that, help Medicaid's Claim Processing System, MMIS, compare claims and EVV data. This is how the state can ensure that only claims with matching EVV data are paid according to the federal CMS rules. The aggregation process starts shortly after your staff checks out of a time slot and completes the visit data. This data is automatically sent to the aggregator in near real time. Once the visit data is received, the aggregator will review it for the required visit elements. For example, it checks to make sure that no critical information is missing, such as Medicaid ID, staff ID, check-in and out address, or one of the 6 core elements. The aggregator also checks for state-specific rules, such as how close the service was provided to the expected location. Once processed, the aggregator will send a response message to the provider system that it either accepted or did not accept the visit data. If it is not accepted, don't worry. The aggregator response will tell you what needs to be fixed. You can then update the visit and add an exception code to explain why your staff did not fully capture EVV at the point of service during the visit. It is crucial to remember that acceptance from the aggregator only means that your EVV data has all the required elements. It does not mean that you are authorized to provide the service that was documented or that the claim will be paid. You should always review your EVV data carefully before you submit any claims. Once you submit a claim, MMIS will use the data in the aggregator to further validate and verify the claim. This means that if the EVV visit data that the aggregator has does not match a specific claim line, the claim won't be validated and you won't get paid for that service visit. If you are a Therap customer, Therap uses your EVV data to generate claims so that there is always a direct match between the visits you have sent to the aggregator and the claims you have sent to MMIS. For more information about aggregators, EVV, and everything else Therap offers, visit the industry leaders at www.therapservices.net.
All right, everyone. So I hope that for any of you that may have not had kind of a familiarity with the aggregator and exactly how it works and what that process looks like, hopefully that provided you with a high-level overview so that you can get a sense of how that works. And so with that, what we would like to do now is take a little bit of time to, let's see, got Shawnette's screen up here. But before we switch over to Shawnette and go through the navigation of the aggregator itself, one of the quick things that I want to mention to you guys to make sure that folks understand is to talk a little bit about what the access to the aggregator is going to look like. In order for folks to be able to access the aggregator, you are going to be utilizing the Kentucky Online Gateway, or COG, which I believe all of you should have at least some familiarity with. I think you've all been utilizing COG for other purposes. For those of you that may not be as familiar with COG, this is the state's single sign-on platform that allows the validation of the user to be able to access that information. So as your COG admins within your organizations are currently getting in there to utilize or to conduct these activities, you're going to be able to get into the Therap aggregator in the same way. What we're going to be doing on the back end is linking your aggregator credentials to the existing COG credentials for the COG administrators within your organization. And then should you need to set up additional access, COG provider administrators can certainly do that. So when you go in through your COG portal, you will be able to link off to the Therap aggregator and see your visits. Once you do that, then you will be able to get into the aggregator itself. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Shawnette, who's going to give you a tour of what the inside of the aggregator looks like. Shawnette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason, and I apologize for sharing too soon.
No worries.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to be talking to you guys about the aggregator and its full functionality. But before that, I did want to have a brief conversation with both the third-party users and our Therap users regarding visit maintenance. You want to make sure that you're ensuring that your provider system, that those visits are complete. It's only the completed visits that have a complete check-in and check-out that will be sent over to the aggregator. That being said, Therap users, you're used to going to the individual tab, excuse me, or the agency tab, and you're either reflecting on that calendar grid to ensure those visits are completed, or you're using our favorite tool, that EVV scheduling dashboard. But any visits that are in incomplete status, meaning they forgot to check out, those visits will not be housed in the Therap EVV visit search, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. And they will not be housed in the aggregator. Again, those visits have to be in completed status. The other thing that's true is visits that are in approved status, or we don't have a check-in or check-out. Again, if we don't have the information, the system's not going to pull in that data, and that means you will not get paid for those services. So you're going to still maintain your EVV visit search, whether you're a third-party user or Therap. Third-party users, it's going to look a little bit different in your platform, but I do want to at least give a preview for our Therap users what that looks like. So again, as I mentioned, you're monitoring your visits here, making sure they're completed. After that, there's really a second layer that you want to do before jumping into the aggregator. Remember that the aggregator is view-only access, and it's only going to see visits down here that have been completed. And when we come down to the Therap EVV visit component, we're going to see new statuses that are associated with the interface and the validation responses that we're getting from the aggregator. So I'm going to come down here to where it says, and by the way, I'm on my admin tab, down to scheduling where it says Therap EVV visit search. And again, this is the second layer of your quality assurance. When you're doing a visit search, you can search by the unique slot form ID if you have that. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about the great detail. This is the main component of the status in just a minute. For larger agencies, when you're generating your search, you can leave this blank and it's going to pull in all your Medicaid billing providers, or you can narrow this down and just select one. You could search by individual, by staff, by that service code. Each service auth, again, also has its unique ID. So if you have that, you could search by that. You have your check-in date from and to, and then enter dates really tied to the manual entries. For today's training, I'm going to narrow this down by my billing provider. And so I'm going to go ahead and select my home and community-based services. And then I'm going to talk to you about the statuses before I do a general search with just a date range. These are the statuses that are tied to the aggregator. You'll notice they're different than your calendar, completed, incomplete, approved, and so forth. So it's really important that you guys understand this kind of language tied to the aggregator. Invalid means it does not meet Therap's validations. There's something missing and you'll need to make a correction. So you won't see invalid visits over in the aggregator. That means you have to fix those visits, and there'll be a validation message response telling you exactly what is wrong with the visit, so you know where to go on the system to correct that. Validated means it does meet Therap's pre-qualifications or validation rules, and that's a good place to be. But and it's usually this before it goes to accepted. Accepted visits are the goal that we're hoping for. Those are our completed visits that meet Therap's pre-qualifications. They are going to be showing up in the aggregator as accepted. That's our end goal. If you see rejected, again, oftentimes it's a setup issue, setup component that you can correct. Another reason why you might see a rejected visit is you used an incorrect exception code, and that will need to be corrected. and add a new exception code to why you're editing EVV. Aggregator error. I've had the opportunity to work with Theraps aggregator since the start, and I haven't seen aggregator error happen. Typically, when I see this with other aggregators that I've worked with in the past, it might be due to a server issue. Usually, if you see this, we'll recommend that you just resubmit the visits. By the way, any visits that are invalid or rejected, or this aggregator error, you can actually resubmit your visits, and it's going to change the status based on the corrections you made. And it doesn't mean it's going to automatically go to accepted. You may have made another error, and so you just want to be mindful of that. But again, the end goal is accepted. We also have this discarded option that you can use if you have some visits that have some errors. They're not going to leave your system. It doesn't delete the visits, but a discard is more like to say, I recognize that. I'm just going to put it in my discard file so I don't pay attention to those. Okay, so now I'm going to do my date range just from the beginning of the month. I'm going to leave my check-in date to blank and just do a general search. Again, I just narrow mine down by, oops, I want to leave this as please select. So it pulls in all those statuses. I'm just going to narrow it down by my Medicaid billing provider number and my date range and my check-in date range. Once you're on the Therap EVV search, you're going to see this blue column header that tells you quite a bit of information that you can use as a filter. The other thing that you can do is you have a filter up here. So if you're looking at data tied to one individual, you can start typing and then you're going to see it's narrowed that view down for you. The other thing that you can do is on the records, you can change that. You can decrease it. You can increase it up to 100 at least. And then when you scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to see how many pages. And you can see since I increased it, I only have one page I have to filter through. One of the tools that agencies will use is they'll export this down to Excel to further filter out information if they need to kind of have a work list that we like to think of. Now, I apologize for scrolling, but now you see on the left, we have these slot form IDs. These are interactive, meaning if there is a validation message that is tied to whatever this issue validation message is, I can actually access the link and make corrections to that visit directly from here. I want everyone to notice this unique ID. It says record UID. Third-party users, you also have this. This is an aggregator ID that is assigned to each visit. Third-party users, I'm not sure where this is housed in your system, but for Therap users, take note because I'm going to show you this when I get logged in a minute into the aggregator. Slot status, this is going to tell you which visits are improved status, but it will also tell you visits that you may have deleted that have deleted a visit that has EVV associated data as well. I've got my billing provider. Again, if I would have left that as generic or please select all or left it as select all, then I would have all of those and I could filter this by using my arrows here. Same is true for that Medicaid billing provider ID. And then I've got my individual, the service auth form ID, the staff that provided the service. And here's really what I wanted to show you guys is the status and the validation message. Last submission is letting you know the last time the visit was submitted, if a visit was updated. And then if I keep scrolling over to the right, you also see check-in and check-out time. Remember, this is service time. The date it was entered, your visit time zone, and then there's the option to use discard. And I'd recommend not touching the discard until we work with you just to make sure you understand that process, Therap users. And then depending on what my status is, and if I make a correction, I do have the ability to resubmit one at a time, or you can bulk submit up to 50 visits at a time. So depending on how many you have. So I'm going to start out with the most common ones that we see, and this is the invalid option. And you can filter this out. I think what I'll do first is if and when we see these accepted visits, that's a good sign that your system has been successfully connected to the interface and a good place to be. These visits will show up in the aggregator. You can see down here, I've got 27 out of 48 visits or 46 visits. I apologize. That's my vision that have been accepted. That is a big yay in my book. So I'm going to go back to the invalid though, so you guys can learn at least how to correct one visit. The same would be true for your rejected. I'm not going to spend time on that, but it'll be the same kind of process. You'll want to see why it's rejected. Look at your validation message, make your correction, and then scroll over to the right and resubmit or do that bulk submission. But today I want to show you a real easy one. Actually, I might show you two. So the validation message on this one is that the location is required for the individual residential address. This did not meet the validation to get sent over because we did not geolocate that residential address. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate my tab. I'm going to go find her IDF. Their users, remember, their face sheet is called the individual demographic form. So that's also housed on that admin tab. I'm going to go right to my list, and I'm going to type Ava's name right in the top just to pull hers up directly. I'm going to click open this up, and I'm going to scroll down and click my edit. And you can tell right away when I come down here, we have our address listed, but we never did the geolocation, which is a required component for EVV services. So we use Google Maps. I'm going to do a search. It's got the address in here, and this is a pretend address, by the way. And then you have two options. Use this location if that looks correct, or you can move the pin drop, and then you would select use this location and address, which I'm going to do for today. Okay. Now I want to make sure I scroll down and click update. Okay. And it's updated that. There's my success message. I'm going to jump right back over to my screen where that invalid visit is housed. And now I'm going to resubmit that visit because I've made that noted correction. It will change that status. You notice it's popped off my list. It is now going to be in the validated section in just a minute. It does take a little bit just to refresh the screen. As a reminder, when you're making these corrections, it's dynamic, meaning those visits, once they're in accepted status, they too will go over in that near real time. So here's another one I wanted to show you just because I can make corrections directly from the visit here. And it's telling us that this visit needs to have the approved out of state travel required as the check-in and check-out address, basically the exception code, because the address is out of state. So that is a requirement by Kentucky. So I'm going to click this link to open this up. And don't worry, you guys, you do not have to memorize everything we discussed together today. I just want to give you a sneak preview. So when I log into the aggregator, some of this verbiage that I've been using or we've been sharing will make sense to you guys. So this is the actual EVV service time. You can notice this address is from South Dakota. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit. I'm not going to change the address because that is the true check-in and check-out address, but I'm going to come down to here where it says exception code and make sure I change that to the appropriate approved out of state travel. In this box, I would type in the reason, and it might be the example that this individual was on vacation visiting his family for the holidays. Now in real life, I'm not going to do that, silly mumbo jumbo, but to save time. So you're going to put in that information, this description, because it's requiring this information, the aggregator the state will be able to have the opportunity to view this as well. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click update. And I'm going to click the attestation that this is true information. And there's my success message. Again, I'm going to jump right back over to my Therapy EVV visit screen. I'm going to scroll over to the right and click resubmit. And it's telling me it's validated. Remember, that's the good place to be right before it gets accepted. And so now when I click accepted, those visits will be in this same process area as well. So when you're on this page, remember you want to address your invalid visits that we've just corrected, your rejected visits, and just so you guys know, the statuses that the aggregator will see is accepted, rejected, and any visits that have associated EVV data that you have deleted. Those are the pieces that they will see. Again, they're not going to see your incomplete statuses on your calendar grid, and they certainly will not see the invalid visits that need corrections to be made. So that being said, that was just a really quick preview. Visit maintenance is important. You want to make sure you're doing your due diligence, because I have worked with providers in the past who didn't, and the consequences means you don't get paid because there might not be associated EVV data in your system. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into my aggregator login. This is also a demo environment, meaning all the information you guys see during today's training in the aggregator is also fictitious, including address and names, date of birth, all that PHI good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and get logged in. Jason provided a little bit of information about that COG component, but when you guys are notified that you're able to log into the aggregator, you will receive an email from Therap. That email has been reported to be housed in spam because you haven't received an email yet from Therap, or it has been housed in quarantine. Whichever the piece may be, we will recommend that you take a look in your spam. and or touch base with your IT department if that email is sitting in quarantine so they can release it. The email that you receive is time sensitive, and it will have a link in there up to 24 hours for you guys to initiate your login. So please pay attention whenever that time comes so that we can make sure to get you logged in successfully. So I'm going to go ahead. I've already have saved information just because it's a demo account. I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And then I will enter in my password. You notice your email is going to be the associated login component. And I've already got my password in here as I saved it for demo purposes only. When you get logged into the aggregator, this is what it's going to look like. Your name's going to be at the top right. Again, I'm pretending to be Sarah Schwartz today. And it will have your agency's information, and therapy providers will also have your provider code. When and if I'm done, I'm going to make sure I click that log out. And when you get into the system, you typically are going to land right on your home screen. Your home screen is going to have your provider information, including the name, your state, your jurisdiction, and then your provider qualifiers, which is your Medicaid provider numbers. Some of you have multiple billing providers in your system because you might have your main home health agency and then the sister companies that also you have in your same system. So make sure that this list is correct. Meaning if you're looking at this and there's a Medicaid provider number missing that provides EVV services, you will want to let the state of Kentucky know, and then the state of Kentucky will let us know so we can make sure to get that connected, because if it's not here, those visits are not going to be interfaced with the aggregator. Okay, next thing I want to talk to you guys about is over here on the left, you're going to see these various components. And when I select either of these, it's going to navigate me to another place in the system. Now, before I start talking about this, as a reminder, I loved that little clip that Jason shared. It's one of my favorite explanations of the aggregator. It's perfect. Remember, the aggregator is the opportunity for you guys to make sure that your visits are flowing over and they're in accepted status. But this is also the state's view of your EVV data. Okay, so this is what the state sees as well. It's also the place where you can come in and make sure the visits are there. And not only that, but you have the opportunity to see this daily roll up to see how those visits are being rolled up into billable units for your claims, for your claim processing and so forth. So it's really, really helpful for a lot of different reasons. The one thing I have to remind all of you guys is that it's view only access, meaning if I'm doing an EVV data search and I'm looking at a visit and I notice it's incorrect, or another team member knows it's incorrect, you cannot make those types of changes in here. This is view only access. You would have to go into your provider system to make those noted corrections. And this is true for therapy users and or our third-party users. Okay. So let's go ahead now and talk about these various options. This is where I really want to hone in on, so I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up because I want to make sure I have enough time to talk about really why we're using the aggregator and what it's used for. One thing I do want to mention as well as usually people ask me all the time, Shauna, who's the most appropriate team members to be using the aggregator? Well, first and foremost, that COG admin that's going to be set up. And I'm not sure if they're setting up one or two or what that's going to look like, but typically it's one person and is set up as a super admin. Then you can add additional team members. But the appropriate team members would be your scheduling admin, who need to make sure that the visits are also flowing over correctly. It could be your billing specialist, because they also want to make sure before they generate billing that it matches what we have in the system. And remember, no EVV means no billable units or claims for processing. So again, those are typically the most common staff members I see set up. And the good news is you guys have the ability to set up your own aggregator admin in the system, which I'll show you in just a minute. There's two different types of admin in the aggregator. There's a standard admin, and they have like basic view options. And then you have your super admin, who has a little bit more user controls in the settings and on the user list, which I'm going to talk to you about very shortly. So just remember, there's two different types. If you're missing some of the components I'm sharing with you today, when you initially get logged in, it may be because you are set up as a standard admin. Really, the difference between the admin, super admin, is the super admin can make some modifications regarding resetting your password. They would have the opportunity to create a new user in the system and so forth. So I'm going to start out with my settings tab. Every user that is an aggregator admin has this option. If you're a super admin, you also have this component down here. But all users will have the user settings up here. If Sarah, I'm pretend Sarah today wants to change her password, she's going to click this change password, but she does need to know her current password today. She may change it because she transposes a number all the time and it just drives her nuts. So she could change that. She's going to have to type in her current password, create a new password, and then confirm it. And I do recommend, if you're changing your own password, make sure you're adhering to the password policy guidelines that are in here. One thing that I love and appreciate about our aggregator is it's generating pop-up windows for each of these, so I can close out to get back to the prior screen. Otherwise, it's not a big deal. You'll just have a million tabs open if you forget. The next component, I will ask that each aggregator admin, I don't care if you're a super admin or a standard admin, please configure your self-password reset. It will save you the headache from having to fill out a form to have us assist you with a password reset. The other thing is if there's more than one super admin, you guys can reset your own, you can reset each other's passwords within the system. But I still recommend every one of us who is an aggregator admin, go ahead and configure your settings because it will save you a big headache. So I'm going to enter my password that I have saved. You would type yours in, of course, and then I'm going to click verify. Once I click verify, it will list out the email that is associated with my login. So you can use a different email. You could use the same one. If you guys so choose to want to use a text, let us know, because it's based on your SMS phone carrier, and it is text information in front of your phone number. So if you just typed in your phone number, you will never get a text. It's like mine's AT&T, mine has AT&T text and then my phone number. So in January, when you guys are going to be officially live and using the system, there will be a question mark right here that you can access for a guide to walk you through that process. Otherwise, for now, feel free to use your email so you can get it set up and you can use it. I'm going to go ahead and click this verify because it's required to verify that this email will work. So I'm going to click verify. And now I was just sent an email to my inbox that I'm going to open up and copy a one-time password and use that to get into the system. So I'm going to paste that in here to click submit. And now I am all set. I have, you'll see it's changed to verified. I'm going to go ahead and click this update, and now I'm good to go. Very quickly, I'm just going to show you if I log out, I'm going to log right back in. I'm going to enter my email to get logged in. I'm going to click continue. If I'm having a day and I just cannot remember my password, again, I can use now this forgot password or trouble logging in. And then you would still have to know your email that's on file for that login. And then again, I could retype it, or if I have a different email. Once I click submit, again, I'm going to receive a one-time passcode to my email. I will paste it in that field. And then I'm going to create a new password, confirm that password, and click change password and be all set. So I'm going to click cancel because I don't want to rechange my password for today. But now you guys get the idea. So as a reminder, please configure your self-password reset. It's on your settings tab, and it's this option right here. Kentucky is not using the two-factor authentication, so you can bypass this if you ever see it. And then down here, because I am a super admin, I have the ability to see the password policy. I can't make changes to it. This is the aggregator password policy. The only thing I do have the option to change is our provider preference section. And in here, really all I have the option to do to change is my session timeout and minutes, meaning if I'm not actively working in the system in 30 minutes, Miss Sarah is going to be bumped out where she's going to be required to log in again. You do have the ability to decrease that depending on the state of Kentucky's guidelines and or your agency. I can increase it up to 60 minutes, which can be helpful even though I can't make changes in here. It's nice when I'm downloading certain Excel reports and I'm just kind of doing a further analysis at looking at other components in here. It gives me a little bit more time to do that. Again, this section you can bypass because until we have confirmation if you will ever use it. But for now, I don't believe you will. I'm going to go ahead and click save because I did increase my session timeout. And now there's my success message letting me know that. I'm going to click back to get back to my prior screen. Again, everything that I just showed you was on the settings. This is super admin access, and this is the user who's logged in. Please go ahead and don't forget to set up your self-password reset configure that. User activity search, although you can't really make changes, the admin can add new users and update, deactivate users and so forth. The user activity can be used to kind of see what actions we're taking within the aggregator. That can be beneficial if you're, wanting to limit that access in the system or what have you. I'm going to click submit. And by the way, anywhere you see from date or to date, it's a 7-day date range. If you go outside that on any of our searches, anywhere, you will get a message error that you need to limit that down. That being said, you can go back to the beginning of when you started using that aggregator. It's not going to limit that. It's just a 7-day date range. And I believe someday in the future that will be increased, but I can't speak to when. Now you can see all the various actions over here, similar to the provider application. I can search by a specific user. So if I just want to see what Sarah's been doing in here, it's now narrowed down to her. And on this page, I can see her IP address, what she's, her request source, what is she logging in from, her server, and the actions she took in the system, and so forth. You can change the entries up to 100 in here, similar to your provider system, or you can leave it at a low number. Just remember, if there's a lot of pages, you're going to have to go through those versus using more entries. Okay, so that is user activity search. The JSON EVV data search is going to be used for us internally if we have to troubleshoot a specific visit. Remember, there's that unique identifier that's in both Therap and third-party systems. API catalog is really tied to the connection or the interfacing, so I'm not going to address that together with you guys today, but that's where that's housed. Service codes, I do want to mention this. This is the EVV service codes that Kentucky has deemed appropriate for EVV. That also falls under the umbrella of the home and community-based services. And you will see we're going live first with home health services. Those that might provide both the PCS services, personal care services will be added next year. So stay tuned for those. So right now we're just going to see those home health service codes, as well as if a modifier is required, which none of them do. The description code for those, the start date of these EVV service codes was for Kentucky 7/1 of 23. If there was an end date, which I don't anticipate, that would be here. And including if they were discontinued, that would be here. Unit calculation rule is awesome. It's going to let you know how these are being calculated behind the scenes. Third-party users, you may not have a place in your system or a guide that tells you all the service codes. You could reference this as your guide. Therap users, we have a whole state page for you with all kinds of good information regarding everything that you're seeing on our screen today. The other thing that I like about the aggregator, it's going to tell you which service codes are associated with which programs and which payers. So depending on which one that is, you might have a different section over here. Next, I'm going to cover exception codes. Exception codes are those exceptions that we are adding to those visits when we're making an edit to explain why we're editing EVV data. This is the state of Kentucky's list, including the codes, and it'll be next to the actual description. When you're editing EVV, whether in your provider system or in third-party system or Therap, this is what the various descriptions that you're using. Most common one I see is staff forgot to check in or check out or both, this option right here. And you'll also see over here which ones are going to require comment when I'm in my provider system to explain why am I editing this. I like that the state of Kentucky said yes for this one, because I think it's important to have information like the staff forgot to check in and check out. We verified with the individual, the services were rendered, or with the family. I think this is a great thing to have. So you can see which ones require comments, which ones do not. If you try to enter add this exception code and just click, the submit or update, whatever that might be, you're going to get a message error that you are required to add comments for the ones that say yes. So that is the exception codes. User list is tied to your aggregator admin that are in the system. Staff data, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, is the staff that are actually providing EVV services. I'm going to start out with user list because I'm a super admin. You're going to see I have some bells and whistles, extra components. Really, that's it. Administrative tasks. But on your user list for your admin or super admin, you can see their first name, last name, their email that's on file, their title if it was listed, whether or not they're a super admin or not, which is important for you guys to kind of know who those team members are, because they can change your password if you get locked out. The only team members that we will assist with this with a password reset, if you did not configure yourself password reset, would be the super admin at your agency. So everyone else, you will need to touch base with whoever is listed as yes for a super admin for them to assist you in that process. I can see which of my admins are active or been deactivated. As a reminder, if you have a aggregator admin leave your company, you will want to make sure to deactivate them so they do not have access into PHI information that they should not have access to. You can see the preferred time zone that was set up for each of these users. Kentucky has 2 time zones, so I can set that up based on my user's time zone. Lock and unlock is due to password mismatch. It doesn't match. You're going to get locked out after so many attempts. And so those users that are locked, I can go ahead and change their password, or occasionally we have them where it is unlocked and they still can't remember. We can still change their password. So this is me right here, obviously. If I need to change my password, I can come in here to change password because I'm deemed a super admin. And I would create a new temporary password and confirm that temporary password. If it was a super easy password, I would want to say yes. If it doesn't meet the aggregator's password policy, which requires 8 characters, a special character, and so forth, check this yes, and then click change password. Then I would let Shawnette know, hey, as a heads up, this is your new temporary password. When you get into Therap, you're going to have to make it a more stringent password if it was a real easy one to match the aggregator's password policy guidelines. So that is the process for how to change a staff's password. And I apologize, I'm going to go right back to my user list. The other thing I want to show you is this is kind of like their profile information. So if I click again on myself, you'll see that I was set up as my first name, last name, and my email address. I can't change this. So when you're setting up new users, make sure that you're sharing correct information regarding their email. It's correct information. I can put my title in here at this point. It was not entered in. I could also change my time zone. You can see I'm an active user in here, and I really wanted to hone in on this section right here. And this is where you mark that user as a super admin. The other component is you have the ability to update or deactivate accordingly. If she leaves, I can deactivate her. So the provider qualifiers, this puts a little bit more control on access, on how much access that staff should have in viewing. They can't do anything, but even viewing access, we can limit that down a little bit. So provider qualifiers, this is going to be those Medicaid provider numbers that, that we see. And I'm actually going to limit this for myself under my pretend Sarah Schwartz in a minute account. So you can limit that by Medicaid provider. You can select one or many, or leave it as none selected. And I'll tell you what that means in a minute. You can also narrow it down by payers. So maybe she only works with Medicaid. I can narrow that down so she's only seeing this, or by programs. The one thing I want to mention, if you leave this as none selected means all. You're giving all access to all of those. So you want to be mindful of that. They can't make edits or changes, but it may not be appropriate for them to see, outside their areas, or, programs or payers that they don't need to have access to. The reason why I pulled myself up, because I did want to show you this, is where you deactivate, or if you change anything in here, you want to make sure to update that. I'm going to go back to my user list because I know for Sarah, for a fact, I did not narrow. Oh, I didn't actually do this. I want to make sure this was set for today's training, so it narrows down my view a little bit. For payers, I'm also going to make sure I select all of these because I want to make sure to include those in my reporting capabilities in the system. Okay, and now I'm going to click update. Again, none means all, so just be mindful of that. I'm going to go ahead and click update. Okay, or I'm not going to. I think that I don't know what just happened there. Let me see what just go back. That might have been on my side. I'm going to click view and make sure. Oh, it didn't save all those. Well, I do know for a fact, I think all mine are under Medicaid. So it'll be okay if I have to come back here and change it again, but hopefully I don't have that message error. Things happen like this when you're in a UAT environment. It's because it's a demo environment. Now it's updated my login information correctly. So I'm going to go back to my user list. I've talked to you guys about how to change a staff's password, how you can activate, deactivate that user if they leave. I've also talked to you about how you can view their profiles and limit their view ability based on Medicaid, provider ID, payers, or programs. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about, is how to create a new login. So again, I believe that I know at least one COG admin is going to be added in the system. I don't know if the intention is to add 1 or 2. Typically we do one and then you guys can add your additional ones, but this is that process. I'm a super admin. I have the ability to create a new login. I'm going to type in their first name, their last name, their email address that will be associated with their login to the aggregator. If I want to add a title, I can. And then this is where I select their appropriate time zone. Again, I can select their provider qualifiers, that Medicaid provider ID, the payer program, whether or not they're going to be a super admin, and stay tuned for more information regarding this. We're still trying to fine tune those details with the state on how this piece will work right here. Once you click submit, that user will receive an email from Therap. Remember, it's with a 24-hour link. And you're going to tell that user, hey, I just said you should be receiving an email from Therap. Check your spam, check your quarantine to verify it's not housed in there, and follow the link for the instructions further so they can get their create their password and so forth. So that is the process for that. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is staff data search. Staff are the staff that are providing those EVV services out on the field and making sure that they're compliant with the Cures Act and all that good stuff. For staff data search, you can search by staff, you can search by their ID, which is, you're probably not going to remember because it's their first 3 letters that are in caps with their last 4 of their social, and it's called their other ID and the aggregator. So typically things I would look for is first name, last name, middle name, or their email if it's on file. An easy way to do a search is if you click submit, it's going to pull in those staff members that have at least one EVV visit that's been sent over successfully. Okay, so these are the various staff. You can see when they were created, when they were last updated. You can see their staff ID. Again, you can see it's that traditional process that we've already talked about, the first 3 initials, last 4 of their social. That is their other ID, their first name, their last name, middle name, and if we have an email on file. And then over here under action where it says view update history, this is consistent here. You will see it under EVV data search, and that will show you any changes that were made and their line entries by line entry. So I know there haven't been any changes just because they're the same date. Oh, wait, actually this one was updated. I see at 4:30. So you can see that information. If I come over here to view my update history, if there was they might've just looked at it too, but if there was a change, like we added their email, I would see this line entry, and then I'll see a second line entry with that information and the date, time, and stamp of when that actually was updated. Everywhere throughout the aggregator, you're going to have that search option. So if you have a lot of, especially for your staff that are providing EVV services, you can use your search to type in their name and narrow that view down. Same with your entries, and we have the download to Excel tool in each one of these sections. So if you want to drill down that information even further, you can. Excuse me. Individual data search is similar to the staff, meaning when I do a submit, it will pull in all individuals that have at least one successful or accepted EVV visit. And you'll be able to see that here. Otherwise, I could search by individual, by their ID, which is their Medicaid ID, first name, last name, or middle name. Typically, when I'm doing this process, I just click submit because I want to see how many individuals we have that we're providing services to, meaning we have at least EVV flowing over to the aggregator. Same kind of information on this page. We've got the date that were created, if they were updated, which you can clearly see here, updated our individual ID. And these are filters, by the way, similar to your Therap application. You can filter this down, you can use your search, and you can change your entries on your page. And you have your download to Excel option. First name, last name, middle name, date of birth. And this is their residential address right here. And this is your program site address. Again, if I need to see what changes were made for an individual regarding that, their Medicaid ID or whatever, you could see that here. Here is a good example of that. On the 26th, we entered this address, and then on the 27th, we updated it. And so you can see line by line, date, time, and stamp of when those changes occurred, which can be helpful to know and understand. Now, the whole reason why we're here together is to talk about the EVV rollup, the EVV data search, and your claim history search. EVV, I'm going to start out with the data search first because I want to make sure you guys understand something. EVV data search is going to pull in all the statuses which are accepted, rejected, and deleted. If you can't find a visit in your rollup, you're going to come and you're going to use your EVV data search because the rollup report is not going to roll up information for deleted visits or rejected visits. They're only going to roll up billable information or units or roll up that data based on your accepted. So it's always important to know that you will use these in conjunction. But if you can't find it, you will always find your EVV data in the search option. Okay. In here, you could search by that unique ID. In fact, I'm going to pull one up sometime just to show you guys how that will look, where you can find it. In fact, I might just do it real quick right now since I have it up. So if I have that unique ID, it's going to pull up that one specific visit. In fact, this is a deleted visit, and it's just good for us to see how that works. You could search by staff, by individual. I've already explained those statuses. The payer. So if you're focusing on one specific payer, you can certainly do, Medicaid or United, any of these, and same with your programs. Okay. I'm going to leave this just with that. If you have a unique ID, that record UID, you can actually remove the date range and it's going to pull in that very specific visit. So I'm going to leave that blank. I'm going to click submit. And here is that deleted visit. Always look under your status column to tell you exactly where that's at in process. When we talk about EVV data search, you have two different view options. You have your list view and your dashboard. The dashboard typically is one of our favorite tools here at Therap, just because we like the view and it's a little bit easier to navigate through. But the list is valuable. The reason why the list is valuable is you can download these, especially when you have a lot of data, down to Excel to further manipulate information that you may need. The reason why we have a plus sign is depending on how much you have your screen zoomed in or zoomed out, the additional details this little plus sign will pull up, where I can see additional information, including information like an exception code that was used on a visit. Where you won't see the exception codes on the primary line, you would be able to see it in here. So under the additional details, you're going to see information such as when it was created, if a visit was accepted or deleted or rejected, the service code, payer, program, individual. Here's check-in and check-out time. Again, that's EVV service time. Duration, which is correct, that's 30 minutes. Start and end times I don't really pay attention to, but you can if you so choose to. This was a manual entry. Manual entries, we want to keep these low as a reminder. That means staff did not successfully check in and check out. We had to manually create that visit and edit and update check-in and check-out information. And then if I come down here, there's my exception code. And this one obviously requires a comment because we have information saying why we selected that exception code. The phone wasn't charged before leaving. We verified with the family that the service was provided, or the individual, depending on who that was. Here's that unique ID again, the one that I pasted earlier. It's going to be housed on each visit under that record UID. That's an ID that is assigned by the aggregator. Okay, so on this page, it looks like similar information, although it's missing the exception code. But again, you can use these filters. This was created, update, status, service, payer, Medicaid, home health, individual, staff, check-in time, check-out, EVV service time, the time zone that's associated with this, service duration, start and end time, which I don't really pay attention to, but you can. This was a manual entry. We also see some new information like claim information history, MMIS submission history, and there's my view update history, which I'm going to show you in a second. Now we've talked about, and the video talked about, EVV data is sent over to the aggregator in near real time. So as changes are made to the system, it's dynamic. It's going to send over that new information. MMIS is not in near real time. So what happens all day, your staff are clocking in, clocking out. Those completed visits are going over to your visit search, where you can see those various statuses. When they're accepted, they're going to be also shown here as accepted throughout the day. Overnight, MMIS is going to have the opportunity to see these visits and kind of process that and give you kind of a transmission or submission history on where that, how MMIS looked at that information. There is not the payer. It's going to be still your standard pairs, but MMIS does not look at that information until, usually we like to say between 1 and 3 a.m. So just be mindful that MMIS is not near real time. So when you're looking at your EVV data search, and when I show you in a moment your roll-up components, you actually want to make sure that MMIS has had an opportunity to see your visits. So if you make changes to a visit today, make sure that you are waiting for those visits to get overnight to MMIS, so MMIS can provide a response. And once you see that they've looked at that information and they're accepted, then generate your billing. Don't do it without MMIS taking a peek, because if you have accepted visits and it's the same day and then you generate your billing, MMIS hasn't had a chance to review that information and you won't get paid for those visits. So that's just a little tidbit we've learned over the years, and it'll make your life a lot more easy in the process. So claim information history, we are not connected in the UAT to process claim information, but I will give you a quick peek at that in just a minute. But I usually like to start out with the update history to see what changes were made to this visit. So I'm in the EVV data search. Remember, that will show visits that are deleted and rejected. So that's why I can see the status. But I'm going to open this up. Remember, line for line entries, you will see if there's changes made. You can see originally on the 27th at 11:25, this visit was accepted. I can see all the information regarding that EVV data. At the same day, minutes later, for whatever reason, this visit got deleted, and now I can see that information here. In the roll-up report, you might have seen this here in the roll-up report because it's going to roll it up. But once it's deleted, you're not going to see it. It's going to be gone. There's nothing to roll up into billable units, which you'll understand in a minute. So update history, use this. It's a great tool to tell you what happened. This isn't going to tell me who deleted it or anything of that nature. I just know that it was deleted in my Therap account. I can see the reason code why we deleted the visit though. So you can see that if the status is deleted, this is a manual entry, and there's an exception code that was used, but I don't have a deleted message to tell me why. So I'm gonna have to look in my system. If this was a visit that was rejected, however, that's a different error. It will tell me here, and this is typically where I see things like, we expected you to use a specific exception code, and it'll even kind of give you a hint of what exception code you should have used. So pay attention to that. That can be helpful. Let's jump over now to the MMIS submission history. I like this because it's going to tell me the submitted time. Each of your visits will have a unique aggregator reference number to point to that visit. Here's my service date. It will even tell you units on your from MMIS, which is helpful. The transmission status, which I'll show you exactly what that is in a minute. It should be submitted or accepted or rejected. You will get a response message based on if it was rejected or not in this field. You'll see your provider qualifier, again, your Medicaid number, individual name, ID, and the EVV associated data will have a link here that you could click on as well. Again, you have the ability to use the search, change your entries, and all that good stuff. I'm going to do another general search so you can see a little bit more data on my screen. I'm going to leave my date range. I don't have anything else on my screen. If I had, Sarah only has access to that one billing Medicaid provider ID. If you have access to all of them, again, that would be an option here where you could also filter down if you so chose to do so. I'm going to click submit. You can see nothing's on my screen other than my date range. If I go over the 7-day date range, I will get that message error. Otherwise, I'm going to pull this up. Same kind of information. I can see visits that were deleted and accepted. I'm going to use that update history. I can see how MMIS has looked at that information, where we got in process. I can see all this good information here, and the claim information, history information if it was being processed, and so forth, including the remittance advice number, the pay date, and so forth. So the claim match date, the date it matched with the EVV data that was submitted. And you have your plus sign to see those additional details. This is the list view. Again, remember, you can drop that down to Excel to further filter down. I want to take you to the dashboard view, which was one of our favorite tools here at Therap. Dashboard view gives you kind of a little bit of a different perspective. I can see information such as check-in data collection method. We have manual and web. Preferred method of EVV is mobile. And then you would have IVR, that interactive voice response, if that's an option. Manuals, you want to keep that down to a minimum because that means it's not true EVV because we're basically entering in data for the staff and it's not capturing all 6 data points when we manually do that. If I need to open any of these section ups, I can click. Again, it has the same kind of information on my prior page, such as this information where I can view update history and this good information over here. Each of these sections can also be downloaded to Excel to further look at information. I don't really pay attention to check-in time deviation for home health providers in particular. Most of you guys will use the self-check-in option, but if you are doing pre-scheduling intentionally where you're expecting those clinicians to check in at a certain time or check out at a certain time, feel free to use this because this could be a helpful tool and training your staff on making sure that they check in on time. This, though, you guys are using, this is the check-in distance variance. You see the 0.5 miles. I could open this up. I can, see where they're checking in and checking out, and that kind of that distance information, but it will list out each of those individuals that is past 0.5 miles and up. NA is typically tied to your manual entries, meaning it's trying to compare an address from residential and check-in location, but because it's a manual entry, it's going to have that NA here. I've got my checkout data collection method. Again, I'd want to hopefully see mostly mobile as a preferred option. Checkout time deviation, again, if we're doing pre-schedule now, that would be important. Checkout distance variance, same thing. I'd want to look at these visits that were deleted. I could open this up again and see why this is the same one we looked at earlier. We've got 6 visits that were not deleted. EVV data status, again, hopefully they're accepted. Rejected means you're going to have to go make corrections in your provider system. You can see your deleted visits, which is helpful. The exception codes that were used for that date range and those visits, individuals that received services. Individual overlap would mean one of the individuals has time matches, time stamps like 8 to noon and then 10 to noon. That would be an overlap. Service overlap is the same kind of component to, this same service is, there's a service overlap, whether that's 1 or 2. Manual edits, I'm going to apologize. This is not best practice when I see primarily all yeses. I want to see no's as my big number and yes be my small number, meaning we didn't have to edit that EVV data, but you could see those here. Provider qualifier, again, agencies that have multiple and you didn't have your access switched, you would be able to filter that out and look at those various components from here and or download those. My various service codes, service duration, I do recommend that you take a peek at this because 0 to 15 minutes may not be billable service time. So in this example, I can see, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and open up my details so I can see this. I'm going to go down to the check-in and check-out information. It looks like it was the staff member checked in at 3:48 to 3:49 for their checkout. That's a minute. And that may not be a visit that's qualified for billing. So usually when I see things like that, I'm going to go on my provider account, touch base with that staff, find out what exactly happened, and maybe the family as well to verify what actually occurred. There's my staff and there's staff overlap, and then start date, check-in date mismatch. That would mean if we start a service one day and end it on the next day, if those are yeses, you might want to take a peek at those as well. Kentucky is not using the verification tool at this point, but it is part of the mobile app for therapy users where you can have that individual sign that services were rendered or leave a little voice message either way, but it's not required. So you'll probably see no. The next thing I want to talk to you about now is this EVV daily roll-up search. Remember, the roll-up does not take into effect any visits that have been deleted or rejected. It's only going to pull in those accepted visits. But before I talk too much about that, I want to make sure you guys understand what is the roll-up report anyways. The roll-up report equals real-time data, and it's an instant reflection of that EVV data that flows in. It's also dynamic, meaning, and I said this earlier, when you make changes to those visits and you edit, and they're going to be sent back over to the aggregator in near real time. Another component that you might not think about for home health, but probably is going to be more applicable to personal care services, is if by chance you ever have on the same day, you have the same service date, maybe the same individual receiving a service, same service code, and same service provider. So we like to say same equals combined units, meaning you have 2 visits with the same of those 4. Same service, same individual, same service code, same service provider. It's going to roll those 2 visits up into billable units, to combine billable units. The other thing that you can use the roll-up report to generate your EVV data that's going to be sent to MMIS for that claims comparison. Really recommend that you use your aggregator as an additional quality assurance before you generate your billing. Therapy users that choose to use the EVV billing, kudos to you, because your EVV data is always going to be a match with the aggregator. So it's a real big perk to choose that and it's part of the state contract, so feel free to use that. Third-party users, you really want to do your due diligence and just make sure that you have correct information before generating your billing. The other thing that the roll-up report does is it displays response messages from MMIS, and it allows you guys to see the status of your EVV information as it's related to your claim submissions. And then finally, the roll-up report, again, will calculate those billable units based on your EVV data, and it's going to show you how many billable units exist in the aggregator, which you could use then to generate your billing. So I really love the roll-up report for those components. Again, the only reason why I showed you the search first is because it houses those deleted and or rejected components, because the roll-up report's not going to roll up anything. It can't roll up nothing, right, if you delete it. So in here, again, I can search by the aggregator ID. And remember, that's that unique ID that's assigned from the aggregator. I could use that unique ID for the visit. That'll pull up that one specific component. I can search by individual, by service, by pair, and then this is your last transmission status. I can see whether those were accepted, rejected, or submitted. Whenever I see MMIS last transmission status as accepted, I can feel pretty confident that I can go ahead and generate my billing. If it's rejected, you'll also see the reason why, and you'll want to make corrections in your provider system because something's missing. Same with MMIS last claim status. You can see whether or not those claims are paid, void, denied, or adjusted. Pretty common to what you're probably doing today as far as you're being paid. So for right now, the first thing I wanted to show you guys is that example that I said, the 2 visits on one day, how that'll look if it combines those same pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I need to try to hurry because I know I'm getting low on time. So I'm going to paste this in. Remember, when you have that unique ID, it's going to pull in that one specific visit. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a submit. And when I click submit, here's the visit. First of all, it's rejected. That's not great. If you have a big long list, again, I can download this to Excel. You have 2 views, just like your EVV data search. You can look at your list or your dashboard. On this page, I can still see my claim information history. Notice though, I can also see my units. There's 2 units here. And then my EVV data, I'm going to go ahead and click view because I want to show you what it looks like when you're rolling up information. Again, this may not be applicable to home health, but I want to mention it just in case. I have heard of one scenario where it did happen. So I think it's relevant information. So, on this page, you can see we've got accepted, we've got the dates they were created. Over here, I can see the dates of service. So we can see this one's from 3 to 3:30 on this. It's the same day, but different times, same individual, same staff. And did I miss the service? No. So we got same staff, same individual, same time, same service, all those same rolls these up into billable units. So we actually have 2 visits the same day. So it rolled it up into 2 units. If I open this one up, this one is going to be 1 unit. And then the other one would be accounted for the second unit. Otherwise, each visit just has its own line entry. This example has 2 because there was 2 visits with those same components. I'm going to go back and do a general search now so you guys can just see what it looks like. I'm going to leave just my 7-day date range. We talked about your filters. I'm going to click submit. And here is that unique aggregator ID that is assigned to these visits, the service date, the date it was submitted to, or the submitted status, and the MMIS last transmission status. Anything that says rejected, you want to pay attention to. Last claim status, qualifier name, individual ID, service code, payer. Units, this is a good place to see. Once you see them accepted, then you could go ahead and generate your billing based on this. If you try to bill for more than what units are in here, you will get a denied on your claim. Let's take a look first because this one's rejected. I want to see the MMIS submission history and click view. So we know what we need to go correct in our system or find out more information. So this was rejected by MMIS again overnight because this member ID is not on file and the provider ID is not on file. So I would need to touch base with, figure out for the individual or the provider. And I can already tell you it's because in my demo account, this one has not been connected to the pretend component for that. Claim history information, again, if I want to see how that claim was processed and or if I need to see the EVV data that is associated with the roll-up report, it's going to show me the basic information that we're kind of used to seeing. And then if I open this up, I can see additional information, including that record UID and check-in and check-out information. Your units are going to be right here. So remember, that's where those are housed. If a visit was deleted, it's not going to be housed on your roll-up report. So remember to use your EVV data search. So that was your list. Again, I can drop this down to Excel to further filter out, change my entries, use my search. The next thing though I want to show you is the dashboard. And then I'm going to talk to you very quickly about your claim history. MMIS last transmission accepted per day. We have accepted per individual. Of course, I apologize. I don't have a lot of data in here because we're in this pretend environment. Last claim status denied per day, per individual. The individuals within that date range up here that received services. The last claim status is, this is NA because I'm not connected to any claim processing. Last transmission status, these are the ones I'd want to take a look at. NA means it hasn't been processed. NYS hasn't had a chance yet to look at that. Again, you can open these up, see that line entry, use your additional details, look at all those additional components associated with that. And drop these sections down to Excel as well. Last claim status paid per day, per individual, by payer, provider qualifier, last transmission rejected per day, per individual, the service codes, service date, all that good stuff that you're going to want to kind of review, submitted per day, per individual, time zones, and last claim status void per day, or per individual. Very helpful information for you guys to use. And because it's view only access, you can't hurt anything. So you might as well start learning to utilize it as part of your quality assurance and for your claims processing. So we've talked about the roll up. We talked about the EVV data search very quickly. I need to hurry up for you guys are going to be overtime. So here's the claim history search. This is going to tell you how the claims are being processed, whether they're paid, void, denied, or adjusted. I could search by individual, by service, that status again, service date from and to, or even the remittance paid from date and to. I'm going to leave this generic and just pull this up again, because I'm not connected to any type of payer in real life. My claim history is not going to have anything here, but I could see when it was reported, the aggregator ID per visit, the provider qualifier, service date, claim status, individual name, ID, and so forth, paid information. The dashboard is going to have the same kind of information again, where I can drop these down to Excel, see how many were paid per day, per service, per individual, and so forth. So very helpful information. I hope you guys learned something today. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. Just stay tuned because we are going to provide additional information and or trainings regarding this, and we'll certainly have support material available for you guys. I'm going to stop sharing and pass this over to Jason so we can talk about some other moving components.
All right. Thank you, Shawnette. A ton of information, great stuff, and really appreciate you going through that in such detail for everyone. For those of you listening in, first and foremost, we realized that was a great deal of information. We certainly did not expect everybody to come out of today's webinar as an absolute expert on our aggregator, but what we did want to do is to give you a wide level view of all of the capabilities that you have in there to be able to get in and dig into your data to better understand what's flowing over from your EVV system. Again, we don't expect you to remember every single detail of everything that Shawnette provided. We will be following up and making sure that you guys have additional resources for reference as you're familiarizing yourself with all the ways to get that. But again, Shawnette, thank you so much for the great overview. A couple of quick things I want to touch on, and then I know we've only got a few minutes left. I'll get to a couple of the questions that came in, but I realized I didn't explicitly say this at the beginning, so I wanted to bring it back up. I did mention that you guys will be accessing the information through COG, your Kentucky Online Gateway, the state's single sign-on portal. What I did not say is that we are going to be following up with you guys directly, confirming your COG admin and getting you guys linked up. Shawnette mentioned this briefly during her presentation, but I wanted to make sure folks understood that you will be hearing from us. Some of you, I think, have already, and others of you will in the very near future be getting communication directly from us to confirm who your COG admin is, along with the list of administrators that we have, so that we can get you guys linked up and get your access to the aggregator established. So keep an eye out for that. As Shawnette mentioned, if you haven't seen anything come in the next couple of days, make sure you keep an eye on your spam folders. Some of those things kind of get kicked over, but we'll continue to follow up and make sure you all get the information that you need. So with the last couple of minutes that we have left, I do want to touch on some questions. I have some things that came in previous town halls that I want to go over, but I want to quickly address a question that came in through the chat as well. There was a question about the unique ID and whether it was tied to the Social Security number. We've had that on our frequently asked questions for a couple of weeks, but I actually removed it and should have left it on there because I know it's something that folks tend to have a lot of questions about. So I wanted to address it straight up. The unique ID for all caregivers within the Therap aggregator is derived from the first name and last four of the social of the individuals, or excuse me, of the staff member. So when that information is entered into either the Therap platform or in the instance of those of you using third-party vendors, we derive that automatically from that information. That's where that comes from. So if anybody has any questions about that, certainly feel free to ask, but that's where that comes from. Some other questions that we have here that you guys can see on your screen. There's a question that came in last time around, for those of us utilizing third-party EVV systems, will you still have to load all of the clients and employees into the Thera platform? The good news there is no. If you're using third-party, that information will be in your existing or your third-party system. It will flow over as part of the EVV data that comes into the aggregator. So you will not have to go into a Thera account and create it. It's going to flow over as part of that data. So you won't have to take that extra step. For those of you using third-party, once you've completed all of your agreements, what are the next steps? Once we get that, we will link you with our technical lead to initiate the connections and testing. If you have completed all of your agreements, you should have received communication from our lead to make sure that that connection piece to get your testing credentials and everything, that should have happened by now. If it has not, please let us know immediately. You can see the email address that I have on the page, the kysupport@therapservices.net. If you've gotten those agreements to us, but you haven't heard back from us for whatever reason, let us know and we will be in touch with you immediately to get you the info that you need there. There were some questions that came out of our presentation a couple of weeks ago on the town hall where we focused on Therap's billing platform, so I want to address them here. There was a question that came in about billing for more than one service at a time for a single participant. And there's a couple of different ways that you can actually interpret that question, so I wanted to kind of address both. One of them is that yes, to the question of whether or not a block of time on a scheduled shift may be attributed to multiple services. We have the ability to assign multiple services to a shift, and it can then be configured. We have instructions here that I'm including in the content for you to see how to do that. You can essentially assign a ratio so that say, for example, a 3-to-1 ratio for a 4-hour shift would mean 3 hours would go to one service, 1 hour would go to the other. So you can create that and configure that so that that information goes in. On the claiming side, which may be what you were referring to with this question, we do have the ability to send in claims for multiple services. Each service in the system is connected to its own respective service auth, so you will be able to create claims independently and send them in. But hopefully that addresses the question that came in, but if there are more, please do follow up with us. Send us a message at kysupport@therapservices.net. We'll provide additional clarity as needed. There was some questions about the utilization reporting that was discussed also in our last call. One of the features we offer as part of our billing platform is the ability to do that utilization reporting, essentially seeing of the authorized total of units for an individual. You want to be able to stay on top of how many you've actually used. And so the question came in, can you use that piece if you're not actually claiming? And to a certain degree, you can. You are required, in order to do utilization reporting in our system, you have to generate billing data, but you don't necessarily have to submit a claim. So you can utilize our system to generate billing data and from that derive that utilization reporting without actually sending a claim. So there is an option there. We're happy to provide you with instruction and assistance on how to do that. So if that's something you're looking to do, let us know. And then we had a question last time, and again, we received it today, and so I wanted to address it again. Is that 12/28/23 go live date a soft or hard launch date? And basically the short version here is providers are expected to begin collecting EVV data on that date. However, that EVV data will not immediately be used to validate and deny claims. There will be effectively a grace period on that. That being said, for more specifics around that, we do encourage you guys to follow up with Kentucky directly on that. They're the ones kind of making the rules and regulations around that. So for any more detail, we encourage you to write into the Medicaid public comment alias, and someone from the state of Kentucky will follow up with you with additional information there. So again, those were some of the new questions that we had of our last call, and also a couple that came in today. But for some of the older questions that came in previous town halls, if you haven't been with us from the beginning, we have included those in our Kentucky EVV page. If you scroll down, there's a ton of resources here associated with the EVV project, so certainly spend some time with this. You can access user guides and all sorts of things that are really beneficial and a great reference to you as you're onboarding and preparing for go live. But specific to the FAQ questions, we do have a lot of questions that have come in that we have linked off right here on this page. So please feel free to cycle through these and see some of these. Many of them we've embedded some links in here to give you more detailed instruction on how to conduct particular activities within the system. Go back to full screen. And again, I know I already touched on this, but again, just as a detail here with the slides, there are a lot of resources throughout our website, and we've tried to link them all off of that Kentucky specific page. So definitely check that out. And continue to engage with your therapy specialists. I know our folks are following up with you guys routinely to get things moving, and I know that you guys have a lot of things on your plate that don't necessarily involve EVV onboarding. So I understand trying to balance your obligations, but we really do encourage you to engage with our support specialists and get this process going. As I said from the top of the call today, we're getting close to the finish line, and we want to make sure that folks have ample time to get everything up and running. Thank you again to those of you that have gone through all of your calls, and for the rest of you, again, we know you've got a lot on your plate, but we do ask that you be as responsive as you can in terms of getting these calls scheduled with our specialists to get you guys moving through the process. And if there's any barriers that you're running into, please share those with us to the degree that you can, and we'll do everything we can to accommodate your particular circumstances so that we can get you guys up and running and ready for the go live date. So with that said, I realize I went about a minute over, so I will quickly speed through the last slide or two here. I did want to mention that due to a scheduling conflict, we are actually not going to have a town hall next week, which is Wednesday, December the 6th. We will resume the following week on the 13th, same time, same channel. So please join us for that. We're going to get back to basics on that one and really focus on the scheduling and checking in and checking out piece with that one. Nick Anderson, our support specialist who you saw earlier, is going to be going in detail over this piece. We're really going to be tailoring it to those folks that are on the ground dealing with the schedules associated with EVV and the checking in and the checking out with the caregivers. So that's where we're going to tailor a lot of the content on that day, and then we'll continue to do the town halls right up until go live. So with that, we'll wrap things up today. Appreciate you sticking it out with us. Again, thank you to Shawnette on the therapy side for her overview of the aggregator. We're going to get this recording posted up as soon as we can. We'll work with Kentucky on that and get it posted off our site. We're also going to share the slides and have those up and available hopefully within the next couple of days as well. So again, we thank you all for the time that you spent with us. And I will ask quickly for our friends in Kentucky, anything else we want to share before we close today's call? All right, hearing none, I will assume we are good to go. So thanks, everybody. We'll let you guys go, and we look forward to speaking with you again in a couple of weeks. But please don't hesitate to reach out to us at Therapy if there's anything we can assist with as you go through this process. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to everyone later. Bye-bye.